Hello, beautiful. I am Sonta, and this is Upper English on this video dial, 22nd Century, Channel 28. In this episode and the remaining 3 to come, we will devote time to look at WAS English Language, Paper 2, Section A. And why that? Well, a number of candidates are preparing to sit to that very important paper. English language is a very core one at that. So we're making efforts to look at Section A, and it is squarely about writing. It is very essential to look at what we will learn at the end of the 4 episodes, episode 1, 2, 3, and of course 4. So by the end of our take on paper 2, you should be able to understand the types of questions found under Section A. Understand the marking parameters, meaning the examiner's length. Understand the truth about those parameters. Understand the nature of paragraph writing. Understand paragraph development, the fear found in content analysis, how to plan before writing, what choice among the 5 questions will suit you best. So by the end of our 3 or our 4 episodes, you should be able to clarify all these ones. So we look at the scope of episode 4, meaning the areas we are going to delve into in this episode 4. We'll look at the range of essays, meaning the essay questions that will be asked. We'll look at the length of composition, meaning how many words to cover for this section. And we'll look at the marking parameters, meaning examiner's length, those areas examiners have to look at when they want to mark your script. So types of essay. This section, Section A, which goes for 50 marks, lasting for about 50 minutes, will look at the following range of essay questions. It's a writing, as you know. That one includes formal, informal, and sometimes even semi-formal. And it will look at speech writing, narrative, description, argumentative or debate, report writing, article writing, exposition, and even creative writing. So these are the broad areas, or the broad categories under which questions will fall. And every other year, the first among the 5 questions will be letter writing. And mostly it could be informal letter. So let us experiment with the minimum length. How many words you are expected to cover when you want to write, whether it is letter, it is article writing, it is speech writing, whatever you choose, you have to write up to 450 words. Has it ever occurred to you why normally it is the case that they demand you write a given script within a given number of words? It could be 500 words, it could be 1,000 words. Why? Have you ever asked that? From NPSE, Becker, WAS, even up to higher level during essay competitions, you are always asked to write the essay following a given number of words, meaning a word target. So for WAS, you are given a given word target that is what? 450 words. And why? The reason is very simple. The first one is to promote fairness. Imagine you are giving a question to write and not giving a word target. Some will write 300 words, some 1,000 words. And if I am to mark now, imagine a person as getting up to 1,000 words, and there is fair chance that in that number, you have paragraphs that contain essential points. So they will end up scoring more than those who write below that, 300 words, 400 words. So but being given a specific target, it promotes fairness. So everybody has got to work towards that 450 words. So that's the first thing. Second thing is that it's to test precision writing. So if you are asked to write up to 450 words, it simply means if you write up to it, it means you are precise, you are exact. If you write above that, it means you are imprecise. It means you actually do not understand, or you have gone overboard what you are asked to fall within. That is what it means. So above means you are not precise. Below means you are imprecise. It means the paragraphs are not well developed. It means the point raised in the essay are not well developed. So on the developed point will mean that the paragraphs are very slender, would mean that you are not you don't write the essay up to the target words. That's the point you have to bear in mind when it comes to the minimum length. So now we start looking at the marking parameters, or what we refer to as examiner's lens. What the examiners will have to look at when they mark your script. Very essential, 4 good areas, and you have to understand those areas. So when you write, you keep them in mind. The first one is content. It goes for 10 marks. Okay, and that means consider all parts of the question. So imagine you are asked to write, you have been driven from school for failing to pay your school fees. And you are asked to write a letter to your mother to inform her about your school fees. And that question is about one thing, to write to your mother to inform her about your school fee. And we have a lot to discuss when it comes to a single direction question. But if you're asked to write to your mother to inform her about your school fee and things happening at home, this question has got 2 parts. The first part is about telling your mother about the school fees, and then the other part is what? You have to inform her about things happening at home. So 2 parts. So if you handle one part and you disregard the other part, they will reduce mark proportionally for content. Very, very essential. You have to get 10 marks. They might give you 3 marks, sometimes 4 marks, because, of course, you only handle one aspect and you disregard the other aspect. So you have to pay attention to how many parts out of this question. Is it one part? When I ask you to write a letter to your mother to inform her about your school fee, that is one thing. And if you ask to write to your mother, informing her about your school fees and other things at home, or other things happening at home, that would be a question that has got 2 parts. So these are things to bear in mind when it comes to content. Content simply means answer the question asked. Be true to what you are asked to cover. And there are roadblocks, meaning those things that may prevent you from interpreting what the question is about. And those things refer to unfamiliar vocabulary. There are words in the question that may tend to deceive you, that may tend to keep you away from what it actually means, that may tend to prevent you from interpreting the question in light of what it means. So we call those ones roadblocks. So let me give you typical WAS questions to look at the direction of questions. So we have single direction question, meaning question that has got only one direction, and we have multiple direction questions, meaning questions that have got multiple parts. So here are they. Your sister wants to marry a man from another ethnic group against your mother's wishes. Write a letter to your mother giving at least 3 reasons why she should accept your sister's decision. Here is 2002, of course. So 3 reasons why your mother should accept your sister's decision. So this is a one or single direction question. All the reasons you have to give supposed to lend themselves to your mother accepting your sister's decision. So this is one. So most questions asking you give at least 3 reasons or state at least 3 points. They are indeed pointing to just one thing. So this is an example of a single direction question. Let us have a look at a multiple direction question. You have learned that your younger brother intends to involve himself in examination malpractice during the WAS. Write a letter to him warning him of the dangers of such an action and urging him to concentrate on his studies instead. So this question has got 2 parts. 1, warning him of the dangers of such an action, meaning the act of taking part in examination malpractice, that is one aspect, and urging him to concentrate on his studies instead. So if you handle one part, you spend all your time talking about dangers inherent in the act of engaging in exam malpractice. If that is all you could do, you will lose valuable marks because this question has got 2 parts. So you may want to give 2 paragraphs to the dangers involving examination malpractice and 1 paragraph about urging him to turn to his studies. So be very careful when it comes to the questions. Look at the question very carefully. Ask yourself, is this question about one thing? Is it about 2 things or more than that? So you have to experiment with that. That is what content is about. We will experiment more about content in later episode. Now we come to organization. That is the second parameter examiners have got to look at when they mark your script. It goes for 10 marks. So these are the things it entails. 1, formal features. If you want to write a letter, for example, informal letter, you have to understand its structure, meaning an informal letter has got 1 heading, what we call address. You have to salute. You've got to have an introduction of its own. Then you must have a well-developed paragraph, a body, and you must have a conclusion that befits informal letter, and you must have a subscription, meaning yours sincerely, and of course your first name, and that's it. If you are asked to write an article, you've got to have a title regarding the article. If you want to write a story, you've got to have what? A title. So this will amount to the formal features, meaning the structures. So the first thing to consider when it comes to organization will be the formal features. Second is you have to have good opening and good closing. An opening that are befitting to the sort of writing you have chosen. Is it formal letter, informal letter? Is it article writing? Is it debate? Is it speech writing? And so on. So you've got to keep to that. So good opening and good closing amount to what they look for when it comes to organization. And thirdly, paragraph awareness. You will not want to cramp everything into one big, tight sort of script. You have to be able to divide your writing into meaningful units, and those units we call paragraphs. Okay? You have to have paragraph awareness. What makes a paragraph? That's supposed to be borne in mind, and that's you have to devote 1 idea to 1 paragraph, meaning 1 paragraph should be able to discuss just 1 idea. And then you must develop that idea very, very, very well. We call paragraph development. And you must use appropriate linkers, second, first, or firstly, secondly, or meanwhile, or moreover, however. So you've got to understand what meanwhile means, what moreover means, what nevertheless means. These are very essential when it comes to paragraph writing. They promote logical flow. You flow from one point to the other. So you must have these within paragraph and between paragraphs. So within paragraph, meaning within 1 paragraph, and between paragraphs, meaning from 1 paragraph to the other. You may say firstly, you give your first point, you explain things. Other paragraph, secondly, or second, and if you are, of course, at the end, you will say finally. They are very essential again to show that, of course, they promote logical flow at that. So these are the things you have to look at when it comes to organization. Now we turn our attention to expressions. That one goes for 20 marks. This one tests your ability or the ability to express yourself in English. That's very essential. And the things it looks at, or the things examiners consider when it comes to expression, 20 marks. First, effective control of vocabulary. You should be able to use vocabulary effectively. Two things have to be borne in mind when it comes to the effective use of vocabulary. One, you must use vocabulary to mean what they ought to mean. If I want to say, for example, postpone, I should be able to use postpone in a context that means actually what it ought to mean. That is one thing. The other thing is that if you are asked, for example, to write an article on the effect of environmental pollution and to suggest some solution regarding that, you should be able to use environmental terms that are linked to this key idea. For example, greenhouse gases would be one thing, contaminants. So you must use jargons that are linked to environmental pollution. That's very key. So two things when it comes to the effective use of vocabulary. One, use words to mean what they claim to mean in context. Okay, that is one. Number two, use words when you are talking about, for example, if you have to write about the effect of Ebola or Ebola pandemic, as we've had, it has having a take on one of the countries in Africa. So you must be able to use terms that are linked to that. That's the one thing. That's one of the things you must know about expression. Second is good sentence structure. You must be able to understand the available sentence structures we have. Simple sentence, compound sentence, complex sentence, compound complex sentence. You should be able to mix them. And you should be able to vary the beginning of sentences. You should not begin every sentence with subject, verb, with subject, verb, object. So you have to begin in a very different way at that. So you see, you should know sentence structures, simple, compound, complex, and compound complex. And you must avoid on English expressions or on English collocations. I know, of course, Creole has played a very significant part when it comes to the way we express ourselves in English. So example in Creole, we would say, I went to leave my friend. In Creole, we would say, I go left me paddy. And they will use the same thing in English. I went to leave my friend. That is very un-English. And it should be, I went to see my friend off. See, I went to see him off, for example. Or I went to see her off. So be very careful about that, not to use on English collocation. For example, we'll say, in Creole, we'll say, your mother get fine cut neck. But how do you put that in English? And they will say, my mother has nice cut neck. It is impossible. It should be, my mother has nice segmented neck. So we should push for to use expressions that are very English, that are not on English. That, again, will be what examiners will look at. And the third thing they will look at is the use of figurative language. And when I mean figurative language, example, he had a firm grasp on the concept to mean that he understood the concept. So the general, literal expression is he understood the concept. But the figurative one would be he had a firm grasp on the concept. And here, it is so very common. This expression is so very common. In fact, it does not evoke any picture in mind. But if I say, we call this one conventional metaphor. It's a metaphor. But if I say, my room is a river. My room is a river. That one will draw the picture about a river. It will evoke the mental picture about your room being flooded. It could be rainwater or any other means. That's it. So we have conventional metaphors, many metaphors that are so common that people don't even think about the picture it may create or the pictures they may create. And we have what we refer to as poetic or stylistic metaphors. When I say, for example, my room is a river, that would be something that should be that will create picture in the reader's mind. So 3 key things: effective control of vocabulary, that is very essential. 4 things: good sentence structure, understand simple sentence, compound sentence, complex sentence, compound complex sentence, and of course, avoid un-English expressions. Be very careful with that when you translate Creole expressions into English. Be very careful with that. And of course, we say use of figurative language. And we turn to the last aspect, which is mechanical accuracy. That amount to one of the parameters examiners use when they mark your script. So what mechanical accuracy looks at? One among them will be correct grammar. Your grammar should be very correct. We have up to 3,500 grammar rules. Nobody says you should understand everything, okay? So we take, for example, I have done it this morning versus I did it this morning. So I have done it this morning is wrong, but I did it this morning is correct. Why? Because we don't use present perfect tense with specific time or finished time. So this morning is a finished time. And always we should use past tense with finished time. And of course, it also takes into cognizance punctuation, meaning the comma, full stop, and so on and so forth. But our drag into ChatGPT has had telling effect on how we use punctuation. So my advice is to avoid ChatGPT. Go and learn your punctuation. Example, I met my uncle yesterday, comma, he gave me a gift. That comma there is wrong. You're supposed to have a full stop. I met my uncle yesterday, full stop, capital H, he gave me a gift. And lastly, spelling. So mechanical accuracy also takes into cognizance spelling, the American way of spelling, and the British way of spelling. So we have, for example, favor, F-A-V-O-R, and favor, F-A-V-O-U-R. So F-A-V-O-R is about the American way of spelling. F-A-V-O-U-R is indeed about the British spelling. So you have to choose one. You don't have to mix them. And the last one is initialism. Is it BBC with no dot or BBC with dot? So normally we say BBC, BBC. Okay? So you have to be very careful with that. These are the elements that examiners look for when it comes to mechanical accuracy. So indeed, this is how we end the fourth episode, well, the first one of the 4 episodes we are going to even delve into. So the first one is about everything about the range of essays, everything about the marking parameters, what examiners look at when it comes to your script. So join me for the next episode where we'll have a look at paragraph, the nature of paragraph development, and so on. A very interesting one like that.